it was a great question. And the question was, as a 1099 contractor, what are the tax implications for housing expenses when working in a location for an extended period, specifically over a year? How can these individuals maximize their tax deductions, and what should they be aware of to remain compliant? So tell me, what spurned that question? Obviously, experience or something you're thinking about?
Well, so again, in the current situation I live in Kansas. There's a lot of miles between facilities. And so, one facility that I work at, I take call at. And so I have to be within 30 minutes of the
Okay.
facility. And so my house is not within 30 minutes. So I either stay in the call room or I could get an apartment. And I know that a lot of people that I've talked to in different areas, have gotten apartments and things like that, but they've also stayed at their 1099 contract for an extended period of time. So they're not
Yeah.
just doing a 3 stint or a 6 month stint. So some people are getting into that year time frame that after that time frame, it's really not I guess compliant or
Right.
legal at those deductions anymore.
Right. So yes, and I think what you're getting to, just for clarity purposes, it really depends on the time. There's what's known as temporary assignment, or there's what's known as permanent. And basically it's 1 year. So anything less than 1 year, you can basically deduct anything, whether it's rent or food, travel, insurance, anything along that is fine, because you're not changing your tax home, because you still have your home is your taxable home. Any job you're doing is less than a year, so you can deduct all of those associated expenses. Once it becomes over a year, well, then it's triggered. Your tax home now becomes that new place of where you are, and then you therefore cannot deduct anything for the job related. So obviously now it's like the 1 year, and they also use the word indefinite. Indefinite is very similar to like reasonable compensation that you were mentioning before for your W-2 salary. So what's indefinite, and when do I know that it's going to be permanent? So that's kind of a gray area. But I think, where there's other, so I think as long as it's less than a year, you can deduct everything and that's okay. But like you said, if there's 1099 and it's a long period job for more than a year, then I would say, what I'm curious about for a CPA that I would ask with a client is, okay, well, if you do get that town home, you know, I guess could you treat it quote unquote as your office? Meaning, this is not my home. I'm renting this office space, but I get to deduct the office. I get to deduct the rent, for that. So, but if you're not doing your business in that space, so then it's not clarified as an office. So I just answered my own question. So sorry. So yeah, I don't think you're going to be able to. Um, so that's a
So I
really,
guess some people have said, which it would be interesting to see what you can do with your employer that I guess take 31 days off and
okay.
then it starts over.
Yeah.
I don't know if you do a
Yeah.
contract for 31 days past that. I don't know. That's kind of a gray area
Yeah.
that I
Yes,
didn't.
that's a really interesting question. Um, Again, I definitely would I think that's a great question for your CPA, because I just don't know enough how technical, like you say, the IRS would get is, if I have a 31-day grace period, bam, and I start all over again, am I still under that next 12-month grace period so I can deduct everything? I think you probably could. Absolutely. Um, that's a really neat question.
Take a vacation.
Now, there's things like home office and all that. You can still always deduct whether it's temporary or permanent. But in terms of where you're living on a temporary assignment, as long as it's less than a year, you can deduct everything. If it's more than a year, then I think I would definitely recommend talking with a CPA and seeing what are the different ways one might be able to structure a contract, to appease the IRS.